Given your experience, what you know, and the depth of knowledge that you have in this world, how concerned are you personally about the US's vulnerability to bioterrorism?
Uh, well, I'm concerned because having worked in it and having seen what some of the capabilities are and some of the programs, most people are not aware of that, of what's going on around the world and how many, like right up here at Fort Detrick, we have a BSL-4 facility that's in Maryland. Yeah, they're working with some nasty stuff up there. And most people are just not aware of it. But yeah, I'm concerned about it, not only through a deliberate release, but accidental release, which is what COVID-19 was. So I'm concerned about it, but there's a camp. It's interesting, Annie. It's a very good question because there's one camp that says, listen, biological terrorism is so uncontrollable that even the bad guys won't want to mess with it. And I remember when I was working on this, we picked up some intel from the East that there was conversations that some of the powers to be basically told their folks, listen, don't mess with this stuff because it's too uncontrollable. And there is some truth to that. Now I know, for example, the Japanese used it against the Chinese in World War II. They poisoned 1,000 wells. They introduced cholera, all kinds of different things, experimented on people, but it got out and killed thousands of their own troops. But so there is that one camp that says even they won't mess with it. However, I have a different mindset because I've looked around the world and we've seen organizations like terrorist organizations like ISIS and some of the barbarity and the things that they've done in terms of decapitating people, burning people alive, all of this stuff. And then, of course, the horrors of October 7th, killing children and babies. So my mind is, do I want to count on the fact that I think these people are of sound enough mind that they wouldn't do something like this? No, I wouldn't want to hang my hat on that.
I mean, you look
And
at
yeah,
some of the tactics that they use, whether it be vehicle-borne IEDs or people who are willing enough to strap on a suicide vest or a suicide belt. They're willing to throw it all away, everything that they could be and everything they could ever do for their beliefs. Somebody willing to blow themselves into, to atomize themselves with an explosive vest, I don't think is going to have an issue walking into a room. And then again, I don't know, in my mind, based off of my advanced research in movies, pop a lid off a vial and then like everybody dies.
yeah.
It's been proven that they're willing to sacrifice everything that they could be for their beliefs. And for that person, oh, hey, this is so dangerous. We shouldn't mess with it. Like they don't care about that.
No, they don't.
They
I mean,
look
if
at,
you're willing to decapitate somebody, kill a baby, kill a child, burn people alive, yeah, using a biological weapon. And the other thing too, they don't have to use it in a way that is, produces mass casualties and mass deaths around the world and kills millions of people. There's low-level things they can do, screwing with our water, screwing with our food supply, agriculture, cattle, and things like that. There was a group in the 1980s. It was interesting. They wanted to affect a local election. I think it was up in Oregon. And so they grabbed some salmonella and they went around to all these restaurants. Yeah.
yeah,
And they introduced salmonella into all of the restaurants and all the salad bars.
that
And they wound up,
documentary is
yeah,
spectacular. Wild, Wild Country.
yeah,
I've watched it several times. Yeah.
yeah. And they wound up in sickening 800 people. And of course, they didn't find out that it was deliberately done until about a year later when one of the guys confessed to it. So there's lots of ways that they can hit us on a low level that they may be willing to do. And of course, when they do that, it causes us to, millions of dollars and all kinds of things going on with us. And it accomplishes its goal, right? Which is to scare people. That's what terrorism is all about. To frighten people to the point where they're going to do what you want them to do or not do. So you can accomplish your goal by low level attacks. And yeah, so that's what concerns me as well.
It's interesting you bring up cyber. I've had quite a few guests on talking about cyber, and it's a real issue. I mean, whether it's scams or, things like power grid being associated with electronic controls and the ability to be exploited or shut down or, ransomware or all of this stuff. Where it's not like we're decelerating towards an electronically based world. We're like fifth gear, gas pedal smashed to the floor at just breakneck pace. So I think it is important that we focus on those things, but it I do worry that the soup du jour of the day will take attention off and then funding off of things like bioterrorist attacks. And I would just hope that it's not Counterterrorism, I know, was a term that was discussed prior to 9/11, but then 9/12, it became the marquee of what we have doing. I hope, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are. Is it possible to keep it on the forefront without actually surviving or experiencing one of these attacks? What do you think it would take to shift it back to focus?
Well, I certainly hope the COVID-19, opened up some eyes and will shift it back to that focus because we can see what an unchecked virus can do. So I certainly hope that that's the case. But we in the United States tend to always be a reactive country. We react after things happen. And same thing with 9/11. I mean, I remember flying on airplanes when I was a Secret Service agent when you walk into the cockpit because the pilot would want to meet you. I mean, just the door's wide open. I'm sitting there and I would hate it because, you try to keep who you are quiet, but but the flight attendant would come back and say, oh, the captain wants to meet you. And I go, oh, God, so I had to walk up there, but you open the door, walk right in. And of course, it took 9/11 for us to harden the cockpit. So we're a very reactive society. Um, but getting back to your question about cyber, yeah, cyber is a real concern for us, and right now it's our number one threat to the United States, and people don't realize that in the United States we have 16 elements of critical infrastructure. And that being water supply, our food supply, our transportation supply, chemical, our electrical grid, and so forth. I won't name all 16, but those are the bigger elements of our critical infrastructure. Uh, and over 70% of those are in the hands of private industry.
Mhm.
People aren't aware of that. Our food supply, chemical plants, these are in the hands of private companies. So the level of security that they're afforded is different, and it's the same thing with cyber. So the level of cyber protection that these entities have is all different. It doesn't come under the control of the government. So that's a big issue for us because we want to try to make certain that all of these various elements of our critical infrastructure, all 16 elements of it, are properly protected. But we have a lot of vulnerabilities. I mean, we're a target-rich environment in this country. There's no question about it. And so we need to focus. And cyber is big right now, and that is gaining all of our attention, all of the resources, training, bringing on more cyber experts to do that. Because the bad guys, as I mentioned, have figured out that, hey, I can get at the end of this keyboard and create a lot of problems just from here. But as you mentioned, does it take away from the other things that we're doing? And I guess you have to prioritize some things, right? So cyber is the issue right now, but I certainly hope that it doesn't take our attention away from other things like bioterrorism.